Right, so while we wait for the last platform to send the data, come on Twitch, come on, you can do it, you can do it, there we go, online, awesome, okay, boom. So, as I thought, I did go ahead and restart OBS. And yeah, everything now looks like new. Icons have all come back, and it's awesome. Yeah. So let's have a look. The problem probably came in because of a few things. One, I should tell you all. I'll touch on that in stream health. So anyway. Here is the recap of the 28-hour sort of get voting, stream, and the idea there was to just give people like a different perspective on the proposals and stuff. And given that again we're still pretty early on, it's just Fund 2. It's actually the very first fund that is dealing with real money. Fund 1 did not have any, real funds attached to it. So anyway, the key things I want to touch on here, like I spoke on actually towards the end of the 28-hour stream, is stream health. I'm going to touch on that, and then thoughts on Fund 2. And just sort of like a hindsight, kind of looking back kind of thing. And then what's next, right? Thoughts on votes, and how, what I think is going to be different in terms of the proposals, what the final count of the vote is going to say about the proposals and about the community. And then Fund 3 and 4, my intentions of moving forward, as well as what I hope the improvements will be in terms of Catalyst, and maybe even the broader sort of Cardano crypto community. So, I'll just kind of, should I leave this on there like that? Yeah, tell you what, I'll close that, and then I'll hide it from here. Right, so the idea that hang on. Yeah, I've not actually hidden it. Okay, there we go. So the idea that I was talking about in terms of what the hell broke earlier, it could be a number of things. One, maybe I just ran OBS for far too long, but I don't think that is probabilistically one of the reasons why it did not work. Why it started to sort of lose features gradually, which is weird thing to have experienced. Anyway, so I don't think it's that. It's probably because in me trying to use OBS for other stuff, right? Because I wanted to just actually quickly record a video, I ended up starting a new instance of OBS. And then once that could not connect to the camera, because again I wanted to record, so I needed to access the camera. Once that did not work, I then decided to download an older version of OBS and install it and start that and try to do the same thing. And in doing so, I then renamed the new version something whilst it was still operating, so that it did not conflict with the new version. And so I think all of this, it just somewhere in all of this, starting and renaming and all that kind of stuff, I must have messed it up. So so aside from that, it's actually been quite good. The key kind of takeaway is the stream the playlist would get to a point and it would just stop for some reason. I tried to remedy this a few times, because obviously the idea is, I've created a playlist which is like close to 6 hours long. I just sort of leave it running and get on with doing other stuff, right? But yeah, the fact that it was getting to a point and the video was just stopping whilst the music played on, that is an issue. So trying to figure out what the hell was going on there. The other thing is actually was the audio, right? So OBS has historically had this weird thing with latency of audio, right? The video and the audio, I almost sort of have to, or seemingly always have to go into the settings and nudge the audio to be, plus or minus somewhere between 200 milliseconds to 700, right? It's really annoying, and that needs to be sorted. I need to figure out how to completely eliminate that. I thought a faster machine would basically solve that problem, but it turned out that was not really it doesn't make much of a difference. I mean, having a faster machine is better because it means less CPU is used up, but in regards to this particular problem of the audio video sync issue, it doesn't actually help much. Ooh. Alright. Okay. So yeah, those are sort of my key takeaways in terms of the stream health. In terms of, let's see, Fund2 in hindsight, or looking back at Fund2. So Fund2, I was gonna look it up and see when it actually started. So I think it's roughly end of September, beginning of October 2020. And the intention there was that the first, right, so Fund2 would run for 6 weeks. Then after that 6 weeks, Fund3 would just immediately start off, and there would maybe even be a bit of an overlap, just so that we get Fund3 started in time. But as I don't know, fate would have it, we are yet to start Fund3, right? We're here like 3 or 4 months down the line and we haven't started it yet. Majority of the delays were attributed to the voting app not being available or ready in time. So yeah, a bunch of that is going to be remedied as we move forward. Voting is going to be available in various different in different contexts, like in the desktop wallet, which would then mean we'll not have this weird glitch or delay, thing that caused delays. So it started then, and yeah, so it was themed, week 1 or something, 2, 3, and so on till 6. Each week had like a different intention for the proposers to develop to get to a different stage and develop their idea. That model, I think, is most likely going to change, as well as the challenge in general. Like, one thing that became even more painfully evident, I mean, it was evident from the beginning, right, from the beginning of Fund2, that the challenge, one, was being interpreted by different people in different ways, which was really not helping. Majority of content creators faced the brunt of this by people not actually understanding that part of the challenge included a call out for marketing efforts, right, or ideas around marketing, right? It wasn't just developers and entrepreneurs, right? So it was sort of like this very black and white, the first thing that they heard was developers and entrepreneurs, and that was it, right? The marketing bit, they were like, no, I'm going to be I'm gonna be blind to that. So so the challenge in the first place, and then after that, the framework of what the different weeks sort of entailed in terms of different stages of development of the proposals, and then the reviews as well. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there, but what from my perspective became quite evident in Fund 2 about the review process was that, one, like, again, the challenge, the conflicts of challenge and how people are interpreting it then affected how people are reviewing it, right? One thing I did like about the review process was the fact that it was incentivized and thought was given, you know, in terms of like quality of reviews as well as quantity. You know, I think it's like a minimum of 3, etc. And you know, people who reviewed received something like the equivalent of $30 or $40 in ADA. So that was good and also bad, because again, the challenge, miscommunication or lack of fit affected it, and which I suppose kind of brings up a point, which is we have not actually engaged as a community around what the Fund 3 challenges ought to be, right? So maybe that's something which I could, you know, between now and when it starts, actually invite people over to have, you know, live discussions about that. So yeah, that might be interesting to do, and sort of in terms of time, might be time well spent, right? Again, in the same way, like, you know, the analysis that Tevo and I did was insightful, and sort of, you know, took that and sort of propagated it to, you know, to try and give feedback to the community in terms of trying to communicate a different sort of way of looking at the proposals and thinking of Catalyst in general as well, and this point in time of our evolution that we find ourselves in. So yeah, Fund 2, I think, yeah, those are kind of my inelegant or ineloquent thoughts on Fund 2. Let's see, Fund 2, hindsight. Yeah. So in a way, you know, my third point here, you know, where I want to talk about next steps, votes, and let's see, yeah. So next, votes in Fund 3. I think here it makes sense to kind of divide it in two. One is what I hope, which I've kind of already covered, what I hope would change in terms of Fund 2. I think if I was to say like one key thing is consideration as to what the challenge or challenges ought to be. That's super important. And then secondarily, perhaps considering what the different weeks entail in terms of what the theme or the question or whatever per week is that is posed to the proposers, in terms of, you know, here's what you ought to do in terms of your in terms of how to develop your proposal. So yeah, so that in a way is sort of like, okay, that's the first half. The second half, I would say, is what I intend to do, right, in terms of next steps. Obviously this is primary, right? So catalysis, the process, catalyst, the agent, right? So it happens over there, or the sort of the technical part happens there, you know, in text format on a website, but the humanity and the evolution, the organic matter of it happens, you know, the storytelling of it, the evolution of it happens here on Catalysis. Yeah, so I've really gradually started to reach out to some folks. I've had a few conversations with a few folks who are planning on joining in on Fund 3, And yeah, so the idea is to again engage with folks pretty early on, and have them engage with the community directly in a high bandwidth, low latency kind of way, as their idea evolves throughout over the 6 weeks, and ultimately to sort of I suppose kind of in the spirit of these reality shows, where you see them much later on further down the line, and you have like a special which sort of like looks back, or here's how far they've gone. And it might be also interesting, like say, I don't know, Fund 6 down the line, for us to do like a catch up of someone who was in Fund 3, and whether or not they managed to get funding or not, because again, like what's great about this is people's motivation or incentives to actually work on these problems is not solely on the basis of them receiving the funding, right? Like case in point here, I'm still working on the idea. Chances are it won't get funded, and I've come to terms with that, and I have some thoughts on why. But yeah, so looking back at say someone in Fund 3, as sort of like a summary preceding us talking to folks on Fund 6. That was the example I gave. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. I think the challenges idea I think is important and quite prescient, so I feel like I'll reach out to people in the Discord and be like, hey, do you want to come on and talk about what you think the challenge ought to be, kind of thing. So today is Monday. Is today Monday or yeah, today's Monday. So the town hall, the Catalyst town hall, is on Wednesday. So tomorrow's Tuesday. So perhaps I'll reach out to some folks and see if anyone is interested and willing to come on and have a conversation with me about that. In advance of the town hall meeting on Wednesday, where I think they're probably going to announce the results of the votes and Fund 3, right? So that's going to be sort of right up to the line, and hopefully the conversations which will take place then would actually bear fruit in terms of what the challenges for Fund 3 would be, or or if not, at least Fund 4 or any other funds moving forward. Because so far I think the efforts in terms of thinking about challenges so far has just been, at least from my perspective, some stuff might have happened on Telegram, but as far as I can tell, not much has happened that I can tell, aside from the creation of a channel on the Discord server, and a few conversations have taken place there. So I'll just quickly go and review that, and let that inform any conversations that might take place tomorrow. So those are my next steps. And then quickly on the votes, I think, sort of as I've spoken about before, I think the in the same way the reviews like revealed an aspect of the community, I think the votes are going to do the same. I mean, I was somewhat surprised by the reviews and how short-term minded majority of folks giving reviews seem to be. I'm hoping that the votes are going to illustrate that there's some people who have the capital capacity to actually use their weight to be more long-term minded and understand that ideas, often ambitious ideas, take a while to actually realize. And when it comes to such an ecosystem and a technology, broadly speaking, it makes a lot more sense to invest in ideas which may be big right? But maybe the implementation or the or the team might fail, and so the idea won't fail because it remains valuable. So it's just a matter of when it happens, as opposed to if it'll be of value, right? So in that journey, the teams might fail, the execution of the teams might fail, but given that we are working in a sort of open source environment where people share their learnings, and this will mean that someone else can come along and sort of carry on the mantle, pick up the baton, so to speak. So I think votes are going to be, I'm hoping that it will illustrate that there exists some long-term thinkers within the community. And actually, I suppose before moving on to, talking about Fund 3/4, I have sort of one overarching thought on it, but before I get to that, I just want to highlight a point, I suppose a metaphor that occurred to me in doing the conversation with Tevo and watching it over and over again as during the 28-hour stream. And it's this idea that you can use the analogy of a tree, right? You've got the trunk, and then you've got the branches and the leaves. Majority of projects in Fund 2 were leaves, right? What I mean by this is, in this metaphor, the trunk would be the consensus algorithm, right? Because it goes from above, into the ground where the roots are, right? It's the core, it's the soul of the thing. Or maybe it's the brain, not quite the soul, because the soul is a community, I'd say. So anyway, I was like, what was that? That's the music I couldn't quite hear before. So projects were majority leaves, right? But then to have leaves, you need branches in the first place, right? And so I think, to kind of break it down a little bit more, you had people who were sort of proposing, hey, I'm going to create this podcast, say, without taking a step back and thinking about, okay, what is, from a first principles perspective, what is a fundamental problem that we're trying to solve here? It's disseminating content or information, right? / content creation and consumption, and thinking, okay, what's possibly the best approach to do it, right? As opposed to saying I'll just be this one particular content creator, right? Of many, where you're not actually solving the content consumption part of it, right? Because if you break it down from a perspective of, okay, as a content creator, you need to be sustainable, right? The best option so far, from a monetizing standpoint, is say to monetize content through YouTube, right? YouTube has, let's actually sort of break it down. Let's say there's roughly 10 content creators, like really minimal. So 10 content creators. For them to actually achieve financial sustainability, they need at minimum to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time within the last 12 months. That is a tall order for people to be able to achieve especially within the particular niche of crypto, within finance. And so it's important to actually understand, the best monetization, content monetization vertical, unless you create really clickbaity stuff. It's really unsustainable, right? So anyway, coming back to this metaphor slash analogy of the tree, there's a bunch of folks saying, okay, hey, I want to be a leaf, and I'm not going to pay attention to thinking about how the leaf connects to the trunk, right, which is the branch. So anyway, weird analogies aside, I'll just quickly jump onto wow, that is oddly bright. Jump onto my final point, which is Fund 3/4 and so on, going forward. One of the things I want to do is particularly, I suppose, pertaining to Fund 3 and 4, is approach these two particularly differently. Because one thing that, again, coming back to this analysis that Tevo and I did, was the international community, right? Localization. To me, it has occurred to me that it's actually going to be quite fundamental to try and solve this particular bit. And this is a conversation which I've been having gradually with a few different folks who I hope to collaborate with in terms of when it comes to solving this particular problem. So the intention with Fund 3 will just be to simply figure out from an English speaking perspective how to interact with proposers, right, and have them come on and tell the story. And then come Fund 4, the idea there is to have this weird transition where I'll start to consider things like okay, how does this content translate to sort of different languages, right? And breaking that down, not just like literal, like getting a transcription and then having that be translated and have it play underneath files which of pre-recorded conversations which were live. That's part of it, but having sort of a deeper conversation of how that relationship works, right? Because there's going to be a lot of wealth in terms of ideas and possibility of, say, technical minds, right? So for example, we could have someone who speaks Japanese or Spanish but is not say technically minded to execute a particular idea, but there's someone, say, who speaks English, for them to be able to actually like understand what problem they're trying to solve, right, the Spanish or Japanese speaking person, then gradually work towards actually working on that and figuring out how to arrive at a solution. I think there's a lot of value in that. So wow, yeah, this has gone on a bit too long, longer than I hoped, but this kind of summarizes my whole thing. So yeah, Fund 3, Fund 4, the intention, that's the intention. So localization is something that has occurred to me, well, not has occurred to me, there's something which, well, it has occurred to me that I need to prioritize it a lot sooner than I thought, and so I've been really sort of like giving a lot of thought to that, and I'm looking forward to solving that. So if you're watching this and you've got some thoughts in regarding if you're watching this and you're thinking of applying for a future fund, reach out. If you're watching this and you are bilingual, multilingual, reach out, because that's going to be quite an important vector in terms of solving localization, as well as if you know someone, say, who is, I suppose, monolingual, but is in a place or position to possibly be able to actually help with this whole initiative in terms of localizing stuff, just reach out and let me know. But yeah, so that's it for now. And the way to actually get hold of me is there, cast.live/catalyst. It will soon change to catalysis. Just go there, and there's a big button which says request, and tap on that. It auto populates an email which then allows you to actually reach out to me. So yeah, thanks for your time, and I look forward to